Maybe I should start looking forward to the first week of January, because 2 years in a row now, the first movie to come out in theaters, I've really enjoyed. Last year it was Insidious: The Last Key, which, quite frankly, might be my second favorite of that franchise. And for this year, the first movie to come out in theaters was one that I really enjoyed and had a fun time with, and it is Escape Room. Escape Room is a very simple premise. 6 strangers are given the opportunity to try out an escape room. And this escape room is so intense and so difficult that there's a cash prize to the first one to solve the room, or the puzzle. These 6 strangers that have something in common with each other that they don't realize yet are forced to go through a series of harder rooms that could mean their death if they don't do it right. And not only that, these 6 escape rooms that they have to go through are pretty much designed for them. They mess with them psychologically, and the people who designed the game basically designed it in a way where only one could live. Now look, by no means is this a really great movie, but it was a damn fun movie that I honestly enjoyed. The best thing about this movie is clearly the 6 escape rooms that these characters have to go through. The way they're designed is really neat. The death traps in it are pretty awesome, or at least entertaining. And I loved how the people who created these death traps really designed it in a way that fits the characters and kind of tells their backstory and messes with them psychologically, because they know everything about these 6 strangers' past, and there's a connection between the 6 of them that they don't realize, and they're haunted by something truly traumatizing. And so they mess with these characters by adding items that remind them of their past and going through puzzles that reflect their tragic backstory. Each room's death trap or design clearly reflects at least one of these 6 characters throughout. And that's something that I admired and something that I felt was smart about the film. I mean, maybe not smart, but something that was fitting for the story and was acceptable. Now this also goes hand in hand with the traps and the rooms because they're so connected to the tragic backstories of these characters. The backstories we do get with these 6 characters, even though some of them are very small and brief, are entertaining and show that they put a little bit more effort than your average thriller movie. Now granted, character development doesn't equal a good backstory. A lot of people could confuse the two of them, saying that, oh, you can't have character development without a backstory, or a backstory is good character development. That's really not what character development is. I mean, it can kind of lead to character development. And ultimately, these 6 characters are pretty much just cliched characters and types of characters that you would normally see in these kind of thrillers where 6 strangers are put in a room, trapped in a room together. They have to figure out how to get out, but they're slowly realize that they have to turn on each other and not everyone's going to make it out alive. And so you get the kind of characters that would be in those stories, and it's no different for this movie. Now I can see how some people might have a problem with that because of how the rooms are set up and how the smarts are put into the room and how it ties in with the characters. They clearly put a little bit more effort in this movie than your basic thriller. And that could be a bit of a double-edged sword because, well, if you put that much development in those things, why didn't you help freshen up the story more by developing the characters better and making more complex characters? So I can totally understand if people find this movie had potential that was wasted, or it wasn't good enough to be a great movie. It could have been a great movie, but it's not quite there, which is why my critical score for it is lower than my personal enjoyment for it. That's why at the end of my reviews I pretty much do an average score of the 2 to make it a little bit more fair. Now I do admit that I do like the Saw franchise, but in my opinion, this is a better Saw 5 than Saw 5. I also can understand if people wanting this to be like Saw, because I know there was people that wanted it to be like Saw, my dad included. He seemed like he was hoping for it to be this gory Saw-fest movie, and being that it's PG-13, it really isn't. So if you're going into it wanting this to be a successor for Saw and to have all the gore and the craziness that Saw has, I can see how you're disappointed with this movie, but I never went into it thinking of it as a Saw film or a predecessor to Saw. Or maybe spiritual successor would be, I guess, a better term. There's only one real major gripe that I have with this film, other than it's an average thriller film that happens to be fun and engaging. The ending really falls apart at the end. Now, I get what they were going for the movie. They wanted to have a more bigger picture with this evil corporation being responsible for making this escape room, and to have this all-powerful evil corporation doing all of this. And I wouldn't say that the ending is all that bad. I mean, granted, once it gets to the point where certain people or a certain person, I won't say how many people survive or who survives, but there is at least one person that survives, and once they get out, that's when the movie falls apart, because there's a little bit extra in the movie, and I think it's just the cheesy, stupid way they introduce this whole corporation thing. Like, it's subtle throughout the beginning of the movie, I guess, or throughout some of it, where there's hints and suggestions of this evil corporation, but when it's actually introduced at the very final bit of the movie, it was plain awful, I feel. And if you're one of those people that the ending will leave a terrible sour taste in your mouth if it has a bad ending, and you won't like the rest of the movie just because of that ending, I can see you not liking this movie. But despite the ending being bad for me, I really enjoyed the rest of the movie, and that overcomes the bad ending for me. To be honest, I really had a fun time watching this movie. It was thrilling, it was engaging. I did like the characters despite how one-dimensional they were. And just pure entertainment value for me was a 4 out of 5. That's how much I enjoyed the movie. But my critical thinking has it at a lower score. So the average score for me is actually 3.5 stars. I'm giving it 3.5 stars for now. It might get lower, it might get higher by the end of the year when I rewatch it. But for now, I think it's a really fun movie that if you're going into it just wanting a fun thriller, and you can glance over some of the stupidness within it, or some bad dialogue, or some bad character development, if you can look over some of those things and just have an enjoyable time, I definitely had an enjoyable time. So, did you see Escape Room? What'd you think about it? Go ahead and comment below. And if you like this video and you want to see more, please subscribe and check out my movie reviews or countdowns of this year, of previous years, of whatever. As always, this is Bruce Gifford, and this was Just My Opinion.